First of all, it's a Pete Sousa show. It is 1 Central, 2 Eastern time, and I don't know, there's so much to unpack. Zach Burke is back in the studio. We love Zach. Scotty Swingler riding the wheels of steel over here to my left. Cameron is in the bullpen warming up because we've got to talk to him about the Baylor football team and the resurgence. I guess now it's no longer a resurgence. The resurge has been on. Now it's literally, I listened to Cam's The Locked On yesterday, Baylor after their huge victory against West Virginia over the weekend, which was more convincing watching in person than it actually was on paper at the end of the game, the way they won going away. But the future is so bright for Baylor. That's the scariest part. The present is fun and it's enjoyable. And really, I would say there's so much joy associated with the Baylor football team now, which, boy, what a difference a month makes. But, wow, the future, Josh Cameron, Bryson Washington, Sawyer Robertson, they're all back, dude. So that'll be fun to chat with Cam about that also. Want to talk a little bit about the Mike Tyson fight. That's where we'll start. I'd like to thank Slovacics too. Of course, Crawford Austin Properties, and all our good friends here that make this show possible. We are extremely grateful to be talking about the funnest stuff in the world, which is sports. And Mike Tyson, that fight. So I was doing stuff for CBS. I was at so I was working like as the card began. And so it was it was Colorado State was playing and Colorado State was very good. And they beat up on Wyoming. By the way, Wyoming, who BYU beat by like 16 points, is terrible, just so you know, which kind of like BYU more and more are starting to look a little fraudulent. And we may or may not get to that today. We certainly will get to it later in the week. But I felt like now here's a college football game going on right in front of me. Beautiful night in Fort Collins. Amazing. They honored I love that they honored the armed forces, and it was just so cool. I love Colorado State's coach, Jay Norvell. He was at Nevada last year, and he's had success wherever he goes. Colorado State's bowl eligible again. Okay, fine. So that game's going on, and I felt like I was missing out. I truly did. I felt, and part of the stuff I was missing out on was all the buffering issues and all the issues with Netflix. Social media did. Scotty, I need you on this one because I wasn't watching at the actual time all this was happening. Was it overblown on social media, or was it a reality check of people just that were livid about this?
The buffering issues?
Yeah.
Oh, it was real. Yeah, it was totally real. I mean, so I spent the undercard fights. I was actually out with some buddies catching up in Austin, so I wasn't paying a lot of attention.
Where'd you go?
A little place in South Austin called Little Darlings.
Yeah.
It's a dive bar, big yard, cool vibes, cheap
Look at
drinks.
you.
Yeah,
throwing horseshoes or whatever.
We weren't there. Well, you could if you were there, but we did not partake.
Are you a horseshoes guy?
Not really.
Okay.
But cornhole, yes.
Okay. All right.
But so on the road home, I pulled it up just to listen to. I promised I wouldn't watch my phone. I was driving, but I was listening to it. And it's when the two ladies were fighting.
Yeah, Serrano.
And And I listened and I heard the decision and the controversy and it buffered mostly okay on my drive. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm great. I get to where I'm going. I stayed the night at my brother's house, dog sitting for him. And I must have opened and restarted Netflix on my phone, my laptop, and the television like 30 some odd times, just waiting for one of them to come through. And finally got I think I texted you. I got the TV. The TV finally came through, and I was probably like 2 or 3 minutes behind.
Yeah.
But I got the whole fight, by a hair. But it was
88,000 people filed like whatever you want to call an official complaint. And
I'm surprised it's not more.
Far more.
I mean, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and I still felt like I was missing out, though. I still felt like I was missing out. I was following it on social media, but still trying to do my job at the same time. I was so excited. I'll get back to you in a second, Scotty. I was so excited. I felt like it was an event again. Now, our buddy Zach Burke, who's in here, who he brought up a great point. Like, and I wasn't really thinking about this, but like, it is sort of sad that the sport of boxing, this once amazing sport, needs something like this, a bit of a circus, to draw 60 million people. By the way, Scotty and I sat here 2-3 weeks ago, and we told you it would be this kind of event because it was on Netflix. We didn't tell you it was going to crash, but we did tell you this. That was probably almost exactly 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. And it was. I mean, the fact that it was on Netflix was such a huge tent for everybody to be able to get underneath. But unfortunately, there were too many people under the tent at the same time, and it crashed a lot. And it doesn't discriminate. If you're Scotty, who's at his brother's house dog sitting, if you're me rushing home to a hotel so you could watch it there, or if you're Dave Portnoy, everybody was having the same issues. This was like, it did not discriminate, and people were frustrated by it. I think once the fight started, everything was pretty much smooth for everybody. Did you have to restart during the fight, Scott?
I did not.
You did not? Yeah, it was weird.
Like I said, I think I was a couple minutes behind, and I just didn't want to touch it again, just so I could, watch the whole thing without being interrupted.
Yeah. So I was so excited. I will tell you, I was like a little kid, and I had this weird like endorphin, and I talked about it on Saturday, knowing this, being sober for a while, and they talk about when you're an addict and you think about drinking again, right? Like you have what they call, and now when you're like a troubled addict, right? So like you have euphoric recall, where you go back to your drinking and using of drugs and you celebrate the most amazing times. Like, oh my God, this one time I was at a nightclub where we had bottle service and I was talking to beautiful women and all my best friends were there. And like, that's what it's going to be like if I go out and drink this bottle of Boone's Farm 2020 tonight. Like, Mad Dog, no, it's not. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to drink Boone's Farm. You're going to end up passed out in the middle of the street after you do God knows what else. Like, it's not real, that idea of the one time at the nightclub in New York City, right, where everything was perfect. And that's what I do with Mike Tyson. I have that euphoric recall to back when I was a kid. Oh my gosh, like this is going to be amazing. And the hype really like was tailor-made for idiots like me. And it was so exciting. First of all, the broadcast sucked. I got to say that. And I try to stay away from that as a broadcaster because like I'm not like somebody who can afford to be like turning down like bigger events, but like I don't think Netflix is listening to this, so we're good. But it sucked. It sucked from a production standpoint. I thought the announcer, again, like I don't take shots at like play-by-play brethren, but this guy, I don't even think he was like a brethren. Like the boxing announcer made it so about himself during the fight. I could not believe it. He was just he continued to reference his own experience, and I wanted to hear from Roy Jones. He was stepping on Roy Jones. It was like Roy Jones couldn't say anything, and maybe I've been spoiled because the last time I watched boxing, Jim Lampley was doing the commentary, and so and he was amazing. So maybe that was my problem. But this guy, who I'm not even going to say his name because I don't know it, was talking way too much about himself. It was all about what he knew, to the point where it was a distraction. And the least of my worries, which was a surprise going in, was Rosie Perez. I thought she was great. And she was like popping in at like moments where she had opportunities, but there was also a sadness in her, which was reflective of the reality of the situation that Mike Tyson was. And look, we don't know if he was in the best shape of his life, as far as like what you could be at that age, or if he was just in really good shape for being 58. Bottom line was he's 58. And it was crazy. Like I felt like for the first 90 seconds, they call it a puncher's chance for a reason. If he had connected on one of those hooks or, one of those haymakers, and he had knocked Jake Paul out, it would have been a moment we would have never forgotten. I was thinking that too. I was like, towards the end of the fight when he was out of gas, I was like, there is still like a 1% chance that he catches Jake Paul with one of these flailing now hooks and knocks him out. And it would be like the greatest sports moment of all time. Like people would have just gone crazy. That did not happen. Again, I said 60 million watched the fight. The gate was 17.8 million at AT&T Stadium. Think about that. That's how much money they made. The highest grossing gate ever. And you say 60 million watched the fight. Like, okay, let's put that into context. 123 million people watched the Super Bowl, the most watched Super Bowl of all time. San Francisco and Kansas City back in February. This was such an event, and it was so exciting. And for one day, it was worth it. We got to go back in the time machine. We got to, and I'm going to read this tweet because it wasn't mine, but I retweeted it, and I thought it was so perfect. It was Kyle Brandt, right? And let me see. Let me see. I'll get there in 1 second. Okay, here was what Kyle Brandt said, and of the NFL Network, formerly of General Hospital, former producer of the Jim Rome Show, former star of Real World. I love Kyle Brandt. He said, "For some of us, Mike Tyson represents something special. We're in his corner tonight. In the 1980s, I wasn't afraid of Freddie or Jason. I was terrified of Mike Tyson. But it was fun. I loved it. Jake Paul couldn't understand that, and I hope Iron Mike destroys him tonight." Like that, I got goosebumps when I read that. And I was like so excited, and I think we were all hoping for this amazing moment, and it was just so not there, to the point where afterwards I'm talking to Christy, my girlfriend, trying to talk her off a ledge because she's so depressed about Father Time and age, and how Mike Tyson looks so old, and that was something that we all have to be concerned about now. Now all of a sudden I'm thinking about a celebration for the return of Mike Tyson Punch-Out, and a couple hours later, all I'm talking about is death. Scotty, I want you to rejoin now. It was an event, Was it not?
Oh, yeah.
It was an absolute event. I mean, it was, and I appreciate that. And if I could turn back time, I would not want to erase it. I would not want another Mike Tyson situation like this, because I just think we're all hip to it now. And I don't know that we were hoodwinked. Mike Tyson got paid $20 million. We got to enjoy all kinds of hype and excitement. And Scotty thinks we were hoodwinked. Scotty, I want give me the straight dope, dude. What do you
thoughts.
think?
Well, I think we were hoodwinked a little bit. Two thoughts. What does it say about our culture that, because it was exciting and I was excited. I was euphoric. All those things you were describing, I was feeling as well. And also in those first 60 to 90 seconds thinking, come on, get him, right? Pop him. Like I was waiting for it. But it is a letdown to be so euphoric and excited to have the back half of that fight be kind of the climax of the whole thing, right? Because it was just nothing.
The death march, you felt
big
like
old nothing burger. Well, and like, what's it say about our culture, right? The common criticism of like Hollywood right now is we're just obsessed with nostalgia, right? We keep redoing Star Wars and we're redoing Batman and we're trying to bring back Michael Keaton to play Batman one more time so we can sell movie tickets. Like, so I mean, what's that say? In sports now we're doing this. We have sold the nostalgia of Mike Tyson. That's where we are as a culture. So that's one. Two, and I mentioned this Friday, and I just want to see what you think, Pete. I am about 50% convinced they had a gentleman's agreement not to knock each other out. One, because Mike tagged Jake Paul twice, pretty violently. And after the second one, you can see Jake Paul kind of back off, stick his tongue out and give him kind of a look. But two, and maybe it was just out of respect, there's no way Jake Paul was giving it 100% the back half of that fight. Like, he looked like he recognized, oh man, this guy, his legs aren't under him anymore. He's not who he used to be. I'm going to look like,
if I knock him out, I'm going to look
like a chump. Yeah. If I knock this 58-year-old guy out. So I just kind of wondered.
Well, look, Scotty, I'll give you, I'll give you this.
Yeah.
You said on Friday, if Mike Tyson comes out and knocks him out in the first 30 seconds, it's not fixed. But if they dance around for the duration of the fight, then it might be. And I don't think you meant like fix. I can't. You're right here.
Yeah, I don't mean scripted, but I mean, was there a gentleman's agreement of, even if it was like, hey, after round two, or like, hey, if we get to this point, let's just put on a show.
But there's one other wrinkle here that's rather serious.
Okay,
is that there was it was the sports book. I mean, there was more action on this fight than any boxing fight, I think, in history, or at least decades. So it's like the real money was out there.
And it was almost entirely on Tyson, right?
I think a lot of it was. And so it's one of those things, like if that were to be revealed or anything, that's punishable by law.
True.
So but even Jake Paul saying like, I was going to take it easy or something like that. I was kind of like, well, that sucks. I didn't like hearing that.
It just looked like, especially in round 3.
Yeah.
I was texting you. That was the round where it turned. I thought Jake Paul could have knocked him out any moment, round 3. Over. And I was really surprised by how tame it looked the rest of the way after that.
I will say overall it was a celebration. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun. There's nothing like it did remind us too that as Americans we love big time events. We're thirsty for this.
Yeah, we
really are. To what you said, to the point where we will reach so far to try to make something like this happen. But these are some of the only times I enjoy being on social media. We're like following literally all night long, refreshing my Twitter, seeing what kind of things people are saying about this, because it's not like that cesspool that it usually is. And it was exciting, and fight night is still awesome, you know?
Well, I will be curious to see how we bounce back and respond to the next one of these, whatever it is, because like I said, I think you're right. The unity of all wanted to see something magical or what if Tyson can get one more moment, right? But then we didn't get it. And so what is the next thing they're going to try to sell us? What is the next event that's going to try to bring boxing kind of back to the consciousness? And will we fall for it again? Or are there going to be a lot of people next time that are like, wait a minute, you remember that time we thought Mike Tyson was going to have any juice at 58?
And boxing is not, look, the sport is not dead. Like, if you look on a list at the end of every fiscal year or calendar year, and they put the highest paid professional athletes, there's always like 1 or 2 boxers on there, up with all the soccer players and the NBA guys. Like, it can still generate tens upon or I'll just say hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And the problem with boxing, as far as being in the zeitgeist today, is that HBO is out. Showtime is out. You know, DAZN hasn't really caught on in America. And they, with HBO and Showtime getting out, that's like hundreds of millions of dollars annually, the sport loss.
Well, and we talked about it last week. Like, UFC really has replaced boxing for most Americans as the preferred way to get a fight.
But to your point, and I haven't seen the numbers yet, but like, I honestly had other shit going on Saturday night. I didn't see John Jones, and I was curious about who was going to win, but like, I was way more into the Tyson thing. And I think that I'm not alone in that.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Yeah. But the 3 or 4 times a year, UFC is going to draw in a pretty big audience. Boxing, as we said a few minutes ago, you've almost got to create these events now to draw the public kind of back in.
Yeah. Which I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever get back to that, but it's very clear that, like, first of all, Netflix needs to get his shit together because they got football coming up on Christmas. And
I'm really nervous about that.
Yeah. And you can't, I was listening to Howard Stern this morning, and then I saw it again. Howard was like, you cannot mess with people's football. Like if they don't get that right, there will be hell to pay. Like, if you're a Steelers fan and you go to watch that game on Christmas and it's buffering and your Steelers are marching towards the playoffs in a huge game, like, people are going to lose their minds.
And it will be in direct contrast to Amazon, who's mostly done a really outstanding job presenting Thursday night football.
I was thinking about that. Like, Amazon had the opportunity for a slow build with their, the prime time. Not everybody was watching that first night, but I bet a lot of people were watching Thursday night when the Eagles and Commanders played. I was. And again, tip of the cap to American. I said this on Friday. The moment I got on the plane, the first thing I opened up and that's doing it right. I mean, I opened up that free entertainment app, and boom, the logo splashed right on the screen. Eagles, Cowboys, or Eagles, Commanders. Cowboys do play tonight. They're an 8-point underdog at home against the Texans, and Cowboys without 2 cornerbacks, Deron Bland and Jordan Lewis. They've just been ruled out. They can't afford to get any more banged up. I mean, Cooper Rush will be starting tonight. We will probably see Trey Lance in more than just like a package or two. And now it's time for we'll probably learn a lot about how the Cowboys are going to approach the rest of the season tonight. And I won't miss an opportunity to hear Troy Aikman talk a little shit about the Cowboys, because he always finds a way to get it in there. And it's always a good time, because I think really the older Troy Aikman gets, the less he cares about offending people. And I think he is annoyed with what's happened to the Cowboys. And I think we'll hear some of that tonight. I mean, last week, we didn't even get a chance to talk about it, but like Jerry Jones just cannot resist like opening up a can of worms, like saying that Jason Witten, when he was asked about Jason Witten, like he just doesn't, he's so smart, but he could very easily be like, he was asked on the radio about Jason Witten and if Jason Witten, could be an NFL head coach or would be the coach, somebody they consider for the Cowboys. He doesn't shut it down. He doesn't say, no, we're not going to hire Jason Witten, but someday he'll be a coach. He's probably going to be at the University of Tennessee before he's ever the coach of the Cowboys. Like, done. But he doesn't say that. He leaves it open, which is hilarious, which I kind of love. I enjoy like the pomp and circumstance of all the Jerry Jones stuff. Cowboys, by the way, are valued at $10 billion, right? More than $10 billion. That's the highest. They were the first sports team ever to be valued at $10 billion. And they are, I think $800 million they take in local revenue, just local revenue. And so this year, I think the math was $166 million for each win locally. They're putting back into the market with wins. So way to go, Cowboys. Another thing I saw just researching that was all 32 NFL teams rank among the top 50 most profitable sports franchises. Like the NFL they just print money. And I think it was everybody made at least 70 million last year. And the Cowboys are at the top of that, the very top. And it's just amazing how, the black and white difference of on the field and off the field. All right, Cam Stewart's coming up. I saved all the Baylor talk for Cameron. And I can't wait. We're so fortunate to have Cam. I mean, the guy right after the game on Saturday, he's doing Locked On Baylor. And boy, he was excited. Okay. I mean, Cam doesn't get excited for much except for the 1993 Maine Black Bears hockey team, which who gives a shit about that? This is exciting. Cam Stewart from Locked On Baylor, who does a show here at 11 a.m. Central, and he's trotting down there to talk to Matt Mosley this afternoon, where the two of them might actually get along, like really get along today, because they're both happy because of Baylor, which is, I probably, like it or not, one of the only things they agree on. So exciting times. Cam Stewart's coming up next. When you got a guy that throws 100 miles an hour in the bullpen, you put him on the mound. We'll be right back. It's a